Episode of Whiskey Colin here. Tuesday night, back out in the garage. I thought I'd try a couple of bourbons tonight. So I think we're going to start with the Casey Jones bourbon. Give you guys a good look at that one. Hope you've got a bourbon yourself tonight. A nice warm evening tonight here in Edmonton. Beautiful day. So this is bought this a little while ago, kind of really been enjoying it. I'm going to taste it here tonight and sort of see what I'm getting or what notes I'm picking up. It's a small batch Kentucky straight bourbon, authentic square pot distilling in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and it's 52% alcohol. It says it's 2 years aged here. So this is kind of a kind of read here what it says in the bottle, give you a little of the backstory of this bourbon. This is one bourbon that's worth the wait. From the distillery that brings you award-winning Casey Jones moonshine comes Casey Jones Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. Master distiller Arlen Casey Jones' recipe continues the family tradition of making only the best small batch spirits. Aged in premium charred white oak barrels, frequently checked and at long last dumped when it's reached perfection for each small batch bottling. Perfect on the rocks, neat, or in your favorite cocktail. This bourbon makes every sip special. So yeah, I'm gonna give that a pour here. Hope you got something yourself that you're enjoying. It's already been kind of a long weekend. It's only Tuesday, so I think it was time for one of these suckers. I'm going to compare it today to a Woodford Reserve as well. So, another bourbon that just to sort of compare what that's like in comparison here. So anyways, we're going to see what this smells like on the nose here. Yeah, certainly kind of a sweet, you can kind of smell the alcohol for sure. I mean, the 52%, it's pretty significant alcohol wise, and you can definitely smell that in a good way. And there's almost maybe a little bit of I'm almost getting a little bit of almost an apple pie almost smell. Yeah, apple pie is also what I'm getting here. Maybe a little bit of brown sugar, a little bit of cinnamon bun, but definitely almost like a nice warm apple pie. That's what I'm getting. So cheers, let's see what it tastes like. Kind of a nice, first sip, the beginning of the sip, a little bit sweet, maybe a little bit of that brown sugary, almost like maybe a little bit of an apple crisp. I was saying apple pie before, maybe a little bit of apple crisp, but then it's definitely got some heat and punch. Almost got maybe a bit of a peppery, peppery spice on the finish a little bit. Definitely got some spice there. You can feel that you can kind of get the alcohol kind of hits you, kind of maybe 2/3 into the sip, in kind of a nice way too. So it's got a nice little heat, nice little pop. Let's try it again. Yeah, there's almost a bit of I'm trying to find the words for it, almost a little bit of a, maybe vinegary sort of taste to it. Or maybe a little bit tinny almost. And it's interesting that I'm tasting that now, because it does say authentic pot distilling. So yeah, a little bit of a tinny taste, almost what I get maybe sometimes with Irish whiskey sometimes, but definitely kind of more very full bourbon taste to it. But yeah, I'm getting a little bit of it's interesting, it's kind of warm tonight, maybe the heat, I don't know, kind of the mood you're in. I'm getting a little bit of Definitely picking up some of that apple pie, apple crisp, and almost like kind of a tinny, you know, almost a little slight tinny metallic, almost a little bit vinegar kind of aftertaste as well. Not in a bad way at all. I mean, it's a delicious bourbon. Yeah, but a little bit of a push there. Definitely some good alcohol. I'm almost starting to pick up maybe a little bit of caramel now. A third sip. Kind of a caramel, kind of at the beginning of the finish, and then that spice. The spice, you think the finish is over, and all of a sudden the spice just jumps into your tongue and kind of gives you that kind of classic bourbon. I love bourbons that have that kind of classic, they settle into the middle of your tongue and they kind of linger there. The heat lingers there in the middle of your tongue, kind of right near the end of the finish, and all of a sudden you think the finish is over and it just pops and just hits you. Some bourbons do that, and I really like bourbons that do that, and this definitely does that. And that's one thing I do recall about this as I've tried it, you know, since I opened the bottle. So one more sip. Yeah, this is a really nice bourbon. Really settle into it, really relax. It's got that little punch, little, you know, you don't get bored with this bourbon whatsoever. Very, very nice balance and push to it. You know, I'm going to compare it to another bourbon here, Woodford Reserve. Look at this. Is of course a very classic whiskey. You see it in a lot of places, of course. I'm sure most people have tried it. It's really, really, I like it. You know, and I want to kind of compare it to the Casey Jones here. You know, I'm going to clean out my palate here, clear my palate with a little water. Delicious. Okay. Hope you got a couple of bourbons yourself. If you've got either of these or both of them, sure hope you're trying it with me here. Cheers. Let's smell it first here. So this has got a much, in contrast, comparison, it's got a much more, almost it smells like flowers, which is really interesting. I never got that before, I think, in Woodford, but in comparison, all of a sudden, it's almost like, you know, maybe I'm outside, you know, there's, you know, maybe it's kind of the, what's in the air right now is kind of bringing that out. I don't know, but, and almost different than floral. It's not floral, it's like flowers. It's like smelling a sweet flower. Really nice. And then a little bit of kind of almost lighter sugar sweetness is coming through, like literally smelling white sugar versus brown sugar. Yeah, it's really, really nice. And then, you know, as you dig into it too, the alcohol is coming through a little bit. Woodford Reserve, of course, it's just sort of a contrast, but it's 45.2% alcohol. And it says here on the back, the art of making fine bourbon took place on the site of the Woodford Reserve Distillery, a National Historic Landmark. In 1812, the perfectly balanced taste of our Kentucky Straight bourbon is comprised of more than 200 detectable flavor notes. 200 notes, they say. Okay. From bold grain and wood to sweet aromatics, spice, sorry, the writing's quite small, so aromatics, I lost my, spice and fruit and floral notes. Okay, so it's interesting. We're kind of getting a flowery note anyways. But yeah, let's give this a sip and see what it's like. You know, in comparison, the palate, it kind of carries through on the you know, a little bit of a flowery white sugar. That's what I'm getting right now. Flowery and white sugar is what I'm getting, which is interesting because I don't really recall that with Woodford before. I do sometimes find, you know, it's kind of hitting me now, and it has in the past, that Woodford will, it seems in a good way, a little bit susceptible to maybe your mood, what you ate that day, what you drank that day, maybe the weather. I mean, of course, all whiskeys are going to have some of that kind of variance depending on those things. But I find Woodford can really swing around a little bit. Some days it tastes really sweet, almost candy or caramel-like. And other times it'll have a real heat to it. You'll sip it and you go, oh boy, that's hot. And other times, this is interesting. This is a whole different tasting for me again here. So it's really interesting thing, I guess, about Woodford. I mean, you know, as it settles into the bottle or kind of your surroundings, what you've been eating or drinking can make a big difference. At least for me, anyway. Cheers. I'm going to try another sip. Yeah, so and now second sip, that heat's kind of coming through. We have more heat, a little bit more spice. And it's settling into almost, you know, a little bit of a similar, and I don't know if I'm describing this right, but almost a little bit of a vinegary aftertaste to a small degree. Not that much unlike, and I think I mentioned that with the Casey Jones as well. So in a good way, it's absolutely delicious. But maybe that's a little bit of a floral note as well, I would say. A little bit more floral in this than maybe the Casey Jones. Yeah, but you know what, with this one too, maybe a little caramel, maybe a little toffee starting to come through in the third sip. You know what, really interesting. I'm going to go clean my palate one more time and go right back to the Casey Jones here and just sort of see, you know, what does it taste like now? It's like when I went to the third sip now, I'm starting to pick up more similarities, I guess, to each other, these two, as they get going on, you know, further into the second one. Which is interesting because when I took the first sip and the first smell of the Woodford, you can really tell the difference. But now I'm going to see what this going back is like. Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely, you know, again, I'm getting a sweeter note here for sure. You know, kind of a darker sweet. So yeah, kind of a brown sugary. And kind of, yeah, coming, you know, you imagine smelling brown sugar versus white sugar. Brown sugar, white sugar, in terms of the smell, that's for sure. That's interesting. And this almost has like a rich, almost a molasses, you know, a little bit of a molasses smell to it too now. Oh, yeah. I think the Casey Jones is maybe a touch spicier than Woodford, but they both have heat. They both have heat. About the same heat, but a little more spice in the Casey Jones. In the Casey Jones too, I think it kind of settles on the tongue, like I said before. Right away, I get that again. You know, about 3 to 8 seconds after you think the finish is over, you kind of get this hot spot right in the middle of your tongue, or the bottom of your tongue, which I really enjoy that when bourbons do that, and this does that. So I went back, that's right back again. And that's something maybe you don't get quite as much with the Woodford. The Woodford is more of the heat is almost a little bit more of a nose heat or kind of a mouth heat, that when you take the sip and you finish and then you breathe out, it's almost like you feel like you're a dragon, you're breathing out fire a little bit. You know, in a really cool way. You know, it's a nice type of heat for the Woodford. This is a little bit of a different heat, but definitely very enjoyable. You know, I'd be hard pressed to pick which one I like better between these two. Really like both of them. I think they both have their place and their space on the old cabinet. That's for sure. Both really nice. Both could go with a lot of different things. I think both would be good, good for guests. Woodford might be a place to start if someone's not used to bourbon. But so Casey Jones is maybe has a little bit more pop to it. But anyways, folks, I've kind of gone on long enough here, having a great night. I'm gonna finish these and enjoy the rest of the evening. Hope you guys have a great night as well. Hope you're enjoying and enjoying yourself. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and